You're listening to the REI Marketing Nerds Podcast, the leading resource for real estate investors who want to dominate their market online. Dan Barrett is the founder of AdWords Nerds, a high-tech digital agency focusing exclusively on helping real estate investors like you get more leads and deals online, outsmart your competition, and live a freer, more awesome life. And now, your host, Dan Barrett.
All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's REI Marketing Nerds podcast. As always, this is Daniel Barrett here from AdWordsNerds.com. Hope you are doing well, and we are in it, folks. This is the second week of our SEO September event, whatever you want to call it. We are dedicating the entire month of September to upping your game in the world of SEO, that is search engine optimization, so you can get leads and deals from Google for free. And because of that, this whole month for this podcast, I'm bringing on Patty D'Alessio. Patty, you met her last week in last week's episode. She is the head of the SEO division of AdWordsNerds.com, one of my oldest friends in the business and one of the smartest and savviest people of SEO that you are ever going to meet. She is up to date. She goes to all the conferences. She knows all the big wigs. She talks to them. She is incredible. And for the last couple of years, she's been working with me solely on SEO for real estate investors. And so she has a ton of value to bring every time she comes on the show. And I can't wait. This episode is a really big one. We're going to be talking about the mistakes that are killing your SEO, because you look, a lot of people, they're always focused on what they can do to grow, and they always want to do more new things. But often the easiest way to grow, the fastest way to grow, is just to stop doing the things that sabotage you. So we are going to be getting into that in depth. But before we do that, I need to tell you about our contest for SEO September. We are doing a major giveaway. We are giving away almost $10,000 worth of SEO information, courses, coaching, resources, all sorts of amazing things. You can go and enter to win that contest for free at AdWordsNerds.com/contest. That's AdWordsNerds.com/contest. We are giving away my SEO for Real Estate Investors Masterclass, a 2-day live seminar, a $1,500 value. I'm giving away a one-on-one SEO strategy session with Patty. I'm giving on a 1-hour private coaching call with Tom Kroll, over $2,500 value. I'm giving away the guest spot on this podcast. 1 year of Moz Local, one of the most important SEO tools that we pay for. We're giving away the Tech for REI Masterclass from Dan Schwartz from Investor Fuse. Go check it out, because you can enter multiple times. It's free to enter. And we are picking one lucky real estate investor to get everything they need to blow up their SEO this year. So again, that's at AdWordsNerds.com/contest. Go there, enter. If you're driving, pull over when you can get to a safe place, enter. It's going to be awesome. So without any further ado, let's get into this week's episode with Patty D'Alessio. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of SEO and IPA. It's the fun weekly podcast where we talk about inbound marketing, entrepreneurship, and more for cool real estate investors of all shapes, stripes, and colors. As always, I am Daniel Barrett here from AdWordsNerds.com, and with me, as always, is the brains behind the operation, and officially the only reason that anybody ever listens to the show, and now the head of the SEO division at AdWordsNerds.com. It is Patty D'Alessio. Patty, how are you, my wonderful friend?
I am fantastic, my wonderful friend. How are you?
I am also doing very well. I was just saying, everyone in my house is sick except me.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to take that as a sign that I will never get sick again. And definitely not that I'm going to get sick just in a little bit. It's definitely that my immune system is impenetrable. That is what's happening right now. But
you cannot get sick. You cannot get sick in the next few days.
I can't get sick at all. My oldest son got sick first. He got sick. We were in Philadelphia for a family vacation. My oldest son got sick. He came down with a fever, and we were taking care of him and everything. We're like, he's laying in bed, watching a movie at this Airbnb that we're staying at. And we're like, okay, it's time to start getting ready for bed. So we're like brushing teeth, walk into the bathroom, and my youngest son is brushing his teeth with the oldest son's toothbrush that he'd been brushing his disease teeth with. So I'm like, look, I didn't do that. So I'm probably fine, right? As long as I don't do that, I will probably be fine. But for everybody that's listening to this, if you did not listen to last week's episode, SEO, or September, I should say, is SEO month. We are officially making September the month of improving the SEO of real estate investors everywhere. So all month, we are bringing SEO and IPA, the fun weekly hangout where we talk about SEO with Patty and myself. We are bringing that into REI Marketing Nerds, specifically digging into search engine optimization for real estate investors, helping you up your SEO game, get in the game, make sure that you are tapping into this most valuable marketing channel of the next 5 years. That's what we are saying. So last week, we talked a lot about why SEO is so valuable, why it is so important, why if you are a real estate investor and you're going after motivated sellers, you really need to be thinking about and investing in this channel. We covered that in depth last week. So if you haven't listened to last week's episode, go download it and listen to it. This week, we are talking about myths and misconceptions about search engine optimization. Because I think there of all the marketing channels, and Patty, you can tell me why you think this is, but I really feel like of all the marketing channels, SEO is the one where there is the most misinformation. There's the most lack of understanding. There are like all these old chestnuts about SEO that people trot out that just aren't true. And I feel like there's more of that than like any other kind of marketing channel. Do you agree with me, first of all? And then like, why do you think that is?
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't want to get all conspiracy theory, but I want to validate it. There is.
I demand that you get all Alex Jones on this podcast about SEO right now. I want to hear about how this is all like an inside job. I want to know this.
Smoke and mirrors, it's all a lie. To validate that, there is a lack of control, right? There is this algorithm that we can't really see. There's some choices that are being made, about us and how we show and how we rank and in what order that we can't really manipulate. There was a time that there were some tactics where you could kind of play with that a little bit more, and the algorithm's getting a lot smarter, and there's a lot of highly technical things going on that we're probably not going to dive into, like latent semantic index and some of this extrapolation and page rank and a bunch of this, but
fancy stuff, basically.
Yeah, but you want to get it, but no, there's a little bit of lack of control. AdWords is complex, but you do understand what the levers are that you can pull.
Right. It's very explicit in telling you what is happening and what you need to do.
Here's the rules. Here's your little scoreboard. Here's how you're doing. You're not bidding enough. You're not, your quality score, whatever. And with SEO, things do change. Algorithms do get updated. There is an entire industry around, there's thought leaders. There's people making some guesses and doing a lot of testing. And you do have to test. You do have to do. But what was the question?
We're saying, why is there so much misconception about SEO? The point you are making is nobody really knows. Google doesn't publish a book where they say, here are all the ways that we rank your website. Everything we are trying to reverse engineer, right? And I always think about, there is this very famous kind of like behavioral psychology study with pigeons, where they have a control group of pigeons where they feed them very consistently. So it's like every time the pigeon does X, they feed the pigeon the certain amount of food. And then they have another control group of pigeons where they just feed them totally random. Like it has nothing to do with anything. They just literally pick random times and feed them. And what they notice about the pigeons is the pigeons literally develop superstitions. So they did a little dance and they got fed. And so they start to do the dance every time. They start to do it all the time, trying to get fed. And actually, even though the feeding is totally random, that behavior gets reinforced just by pure random chance. And so they develop all these like weird tics and behaviors that are essentially superstitions. They're like, oh, if I scratch my claw 3 times, I get fed. And they will believe that forever, even though there's literally no evidence, like statistical evidence, that that's actually the case.
I got it.
SEO is very much the same thing. We're all pigeons. We're all trying to figure it out. And luckily, we have data and we have statistics and we can be a little smarter than that. But there are people who will tell you, hey man, like the way you rank your website is all you got to do is, you got to put your first name and your URL. And if you put your first name and your domain, you're going to rank. It's going to be amazing. And that person's not necessarily lying. They're not necessarily trying to deceive you. What they're doing is they did a thing and they got a result. And now they're kind of turning around and telling other people about it. When in actuality, it may be the case that, well, hey, if you do that, you might not get that same result. So there's a lot of confusion, a lot of misinformation. So this whole episode, we're going to dig into very common things that investors believe about SEO that just aren't true or are a little different than people may expect. So I want to dig into the first one, which is probably the biggest one, which is that, investor will say like, well, look, I understand that SEO is valuable. Dan, I listened to you and Patty in your previous episode. I get that it's really valuable for some people, but my problem with SEO is that it's going to take forever. It takes forever. It takes too long. I'm going to have to do this for like multiple years. It's just going to take me too long and I need to do deals more quickly than that. So how would you respond to an investor that just says, hey, like, I want to do SEO, but I just don't have time. It's going to take way too long. How do you respond to that?
Yeah. Well, this one I get, right? Because it's not nearly as fast as an AdWords ad, right? It's not nearly as fast as jumping to the top of the line. There is work. It is a longer game. Also, and I can rank very quickly in most instances, depending on what you've done and, how much thought you put into this previously, or if anyone else has worked with you before. There's a lot of cases where I can get you ranking, especially for local SEO, really, really fast, where you weren't because you didn't have this structure, this foundation correct. But yeah, you need to, there's a handful of steps that you kind of need to do. But it is seen as sort of a long game relatively. The Google needs to know you're there if they don't, right? That you need to get any technical obstacles out of the way. They need to find you, they need to rank you and crawl you and, all the rest. So there is a little bit of a time factor. It's not as bad as you think it is typically. And also, what was the example that you were saying earlier? It's kind of like, well, my competitors are, it takes too long, so I'm just not going to do it at all. Well, you should dieting today. Right? It's the diet metaphor.
Exactly. Yeah, it's exactly. I was like, well, if you're overweight and you need to lose weight in order to live, and you're going to be like, well, it's going to take too long to lose the weight, so I'll just die.
Just die.
Like, yeah, there's a massive opportunity cost to not investing in the channel. So you're saying it's faster than a lot of people expect, and I think that's true. But even if it took you years to get it done, it doesn't mean that it's not important for you to do. Some things are hard. In fact, I teach this in my coaching program when I talk about online marketing. I say, like, you have to expect that valuable things will be difficult to acquire, right? Like the most valuable gemstones in the world are hard to get because they're valuable, right? They're like behind a giant vault and there's guards. And if you just want to walk in and steal it, it's just not going to happen, right? Valuable things are difficult to acquire. It's like for your business, this is something that you need for the literal survival of your business, right? Your competitors know this and are doing it. And so, yes, like they're going after it. It might be difficult to acquire, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it, right? Like SEO might be the long game. Investing is the long game. Literally, buy and hold investing is you buy property and it ROIs over time. That's exactly what SEO is. So avoiding something with such a potentially high ROI, such a potentially transformative effect on your business, because it's going to take you time to do, it just doesn't make any sense to me. Again, it's like saying like, well, my doctor says I'm going to have a heart attack if I don't change my diet. So yes, I'm just going to have a heart attack, right? It's like, I guess you could do that, but you're not doing deals if you're dead, right? Write that. You're not doing any deals if you're dead. That's the title of the episode. I'm going to put it on the wall, put it on the thing. So there's it's going to take too long. I think we've covered that. I think we just say, look, like the ROI is so significant. The opportunity cost of not doing this is so significant. It just kind of doesn't matter if it's going to take a long time. It's still important to do. And even on top of that, it's not going to take as long as you think it is. Like you said, you can often see rankings improve really substantially very, very quickly. So one of the other things that we'll hear a lot of the time is like, well, look, even if it's valuable, and like, look, I get like it's going to take a long time, it's still valuable. I physically don't have time in the day because you're going to ask me to, I'm going to have to like blog every day. I'm going to have to like do the thing where I'm like in the car and I'm like talking to my phone and like driving and endangering literally everyone on the road so I can do a Facebook Live or whatever. Like you're going to ask me to do I'm going to have to write all this content. And I don't know what to write. So what would you say to someone that's just like, look, like I just don't physically have time to implement these things, even if I think it's worth it?
Right. Yeah. I think, it is true. It does take time to write content if you're going after, if blogging is the only tactic. But I think that there's a lot that you can do within SEO that isn't, writing 4 pages of a blog post. And I would also say that you can't afford to wait on this. Like we know everyone's going to the Google machine, right? They're typing in these concepts. You're not there. You don't exist. So, you need to kind of like make the time. Don't give me that face. I see.
What?
So don't give me that face.
I didn't give you a face. Sorry, I was breathing.
Is that it?
Is it okay if I breathe on this podcast, Patty? Is that all right with you? Well, I was also going to say, so a huge chunk of what SEO is does not have to be done every day, every week, every month. There are big things you can do that will make a very substantial impact that you can do and then be done with, like your local SEO, getting yourself on Google Maps, getting some reviews. Like these are things that like you can do that, yes, there's benefit to constantly coming back and doing it again, but you will still get benefit from just fixing a lot of these foundational issues and being done with, right?
Yes. And, there's some of this that has kind of like long time value. We're going to talk about link building and what that's all about. But yeah, I think taking the time, since you're not paying for every click after this is you're paying it forward a little bit, right? You're kind of getting your ducks in a row, getting your foundation down, getting some content. I mean, Google's not crawling blank pages on your website. So there is a bar that you need to hit, right? There is some content that has to be crawled that Google can kind of hook into and interpret and then serve up when people are looking for you. So, this isn't volumes. This isn't, like you said, every day. But I think, you have to explain your services and what you do and how it goes a little bit. And, and I think a lot of our clients come to us with that. I think they're getting some of that stuff right.
Yeah. So this was a big thing. When we launched the SEO division, there was a lot of stuff that people were teaching and was just kind of like accepted practice for real estate investors. And a big part of what we've done is, look across all of our clients, look across the people that are dominating their markets, look across the predominant websites in the industry, really do a lot of original research into, hey, like, so people say X works, like let's actually test this and see if it makes a difference. One of the things that we've really noticed is that there's all this stuff out there that says, look, you need 1 million links and you need to blog every day and you need to have 1 million pieces of content. And what we've seen actually move the needle and actually matter in terms of real leads, real deals, real data, right? It's not so much having 1 million of anything. It's having a few very high quality things, or having a few very high quality links, having a few very high quality pieces of content, having a few very high quality pages. These things where there's not a ton of them, but they're really, really good. That was usually what we see really move the needle with Google, rather than saying, I'm going to publish just 100 low quality blog posts every week. So this doesn't have to be something where you spend 10 hours on it a week. It really doesn't. You can spend an hour a week, a couple hours a month. If you're doing that consistently, you are going to consistently outperform the people in your market that aren't doing anything or are trying to do 1 million low quality things. So I don't think it has to be this super time intensive, time sucking process. I think it can be, you just have to be smart about what you're doing.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And be purposeful, right? What am I writing this for? Who am I attracting?
Yeah, I mean, so many of these blog posts that investors are writing, no one's ever going to read them.
Right.
Literally no one's ever going to read them. They're written for nobody.
And are you just kind of, there are some people that are a little bit prolific. It's their thing. They like to write. are you monitoring that? Are you looking? Can you see the visitors? Are people coming in that way? Are they searching this stuff? A lot of this is also trackable. So, and we've got all this access to so many of this too, right? Like you were saying, the data.
Are you an investor who wants to dominate your local market? Do you want more leads and deals online? Then download your copy of the Motivated Seller Blueprint, absolutely free, at www.adwordsnerds.com/gift. What are you waiting for? Go to www.adwordsnerds.com/gift right now to get your copy of the Motivated Seller Blueprint.
So what would you say to someone who's like, well, okay, like I get that the value in the long game, I get that it doesn't have to be a bunch of time, but like, look, I've looked out in my market. I have competitors in my market that are doing a bunch of SEO. I've got big websites in my market. All the spots are already taken. So like, what would you say to someone that's just like, look, I want to do this, but the competition is so deep and they're richer than me and they're more established than me and I just won't ever be able to compete. Well, what would you say to someone who's looking out at their competitive landscape and seeing that?
Yeah, I think that there are, just generally speaking, there are some markets that are harder to break into. I can name them, I won't. But there are a couple markets that are really, really competitive. And if you're in it, you know it. But you can almost always compete, I would say. And I say that I've been doing SEO for quite a long time. I think I'm very competitive when it comes to that stuff. Like
right.
I could that kind of thing.
You want to win.
Yeah, me for a minute. No, but I like those kind of, for me, I have that, that's just a bit about how I go. But I think, I think that you can. I think that you can absolutely always get above competitors. I think you can see kind of what they're doing and there's always angles to play. There's always some SEO tactics that you can use to compete in this. And that is the good thing about Google. As of right now, especially I think it's true for real estate investors, there's not, it's a couple national brands, but no one's owning it. A lot of this is a local need. It is a local search. You have your geographies that you're targeting, and that is up. That is available to you.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's this is something too that I've talked about. In fact, I think I spent an entire episode on this, but the bar is very low for real estate investors, right? In almost every aspect of what real estate investors do, the bar has been set very, very low in terms of client experience, in terms of website design, in terms of website copy, and in terms of SEO. Like investors are, have historically been very driven for a short-term ROI, and they've done things in line with that. They're trying to get the most for the cheapest. And what that's done is create an environment where, look, Google's ranking them, but comparatively, everybody's pretty much the same. And so if you can go out and just systematically do a slightly better job, you will break into even an incredibly crowded market. And that's actually usually way easier than you think it's going to be, because your competition may have, just spent money on the lowest quality, cheapest stuff that they can get.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, it's like, look, even just by doing a little stuff that's high quality, really thinking about, being intentional about your content, being intentional about where you get links from, being intentional about who you listen to, where you learn from, you can very quickly outpace the competition, right? It's like if you look out on a racetrack and everybody's got a mile head start of, for the marathon, it's like, yeah, that might be depressing. But if you're racing against a bunch of turtles, you're still going to win. You can still catch up. They're all still turtles, right? It's like they got, just don't fall asleep. I don't know. What's the tortoise and the hare? He goes and falls asleep or he gets drunk or I don't know. Don't do that, right? That was a really weird metaphor. I hope that makes sense for everybody. Just remember that, look, even if you have a competitive landscape, doesn't mean you can't catch up. So I mentioned this in that, and I want to talk about this. We run into this a lot, and it's very understandable to me that we run into it. Let's talk about the cost of SEO and low cost SEO in particular, because I would wager pretty much everybody listening to this has had someone call them and say, hey, I noticed in Google, your website wasn't number one. I can help you get to number one. It'll be $300 a month. Or you've gone on a website like Fiverr or something and had someone be like, look, for $10, I can build you 100 links or whatever it is. Like, talk about the SEO kind of industry and talk about like low cost versus options that are going to cost more or have a higher investment. Like, what is the difference between these? And like, why would I ever choose a higher cost option versus a lower cost option?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's the old adage, you get what you pay for, and you really do with SEO. Bottom feeding SEOs. Wow.
Immediately coming out swinging, calling them bottom feeding. You heard it here first, folks. Patty pulls no punches.
Listen, I'm a very serious SEO, Dan. I've been in this industry for a while. I take it very seriously. I attend several conferences a year. I am tapped into, Google's, they're putting out patents, and we're all exploring what that means. Like there's a lot to know. There's a lot to keep up. Not everybody has to be that way, but myself, Jeremiah, we're very serious SEOs. We take it seriously. Having said that, there is a bit of a low bar of entry to people calling themselves SEOs. It's
right.
There's a pretty dirty side of the pool, but the tactics that they're doing, shut up.
No, I was just remembering recently I took my family to the pond that I swam in as a child where I grew up.
Oh no.
And there was like a birthday party there. And so we went in and I was like, it's exactly the same. It looks exactly the same. The dock was I walked out on they have this little like dock, and I was like, oh, it's like the feel of it on my feet and the sound that it made were all like incredibly nostalgic. And I was like, oh, and my kids are playing in this pond, and it's amazing. And I went to go like wipe, like to sort of swat away a leaf, and it was a little piece. It was a little poop. It was a little human poop, and I was like, you know what? This is what I forgot about that pond life, that local pond life where every kid goes swimming. It's there's a dirty side of the pool. So that's what made me think of it. Anyway, I want you to take that as a metaphor for SEO and just be like, look, it's all fun and games until
somebody poops in the pool.
Anyway, guys, this is why this podcast is doing so well, the highest quality podcast in real estate investor marketing. But please continue. So you're saying, look, there's sort of a part of this industry where there's like very low barrier to entry. So I get that. I get to a certain extent, like, yeah, you get what you pay for. But like, what could it hurt to try the cheaper option?
You would be surprised. So if you do enough of the bad stuff, and I've seen this, I've personally seen this. I've personally cleaned up after bad SEO work. Where a lot of bad links were built. I don't know if we want to talk about PBNs now, but that's something that we see a lot when looking at link profiles of either competitors or clients that are having a hard time all of a sudden. They don't know what's up. They have a lot of bad links coming to them that they paid for, which is a really kind of like bad tactic. That I see people doing. I think that there's a lot of on-site bad tactics that SEOs are doing, and it can literally get you kicked off Google. Like your domain name you would have to throw it out and start all over.
Yeah, that's the big takeaway. Is it's not that like bad SEO just isn't effective.
Yeah,
it's that bad SEO can literally permanently hurt you.
Yeah,
right. So it's the equivalent of like. You could go to CVS and pick up a prescription and pay whatever your prescription cost is and get like the official drug that's like in the little orange bottle that like your doctor prescribed to you. Or like in the alleyway, there's a dude that's like, hey, I made these pills at home. They do totally the same thing. And it's only like $10. And you'll be like, what's the harm? What could the harm be? Well, literally, there's significant. Never take the alley pill guy. Alley pill guy, you avoid. And SEO is exactly the same way. It's the bad stuff can really, really hurt you because Google's priority is to penalize people that are trying to manipulate it in a way that's going to be bad for searchers, right? So Google has monetary incentives to knock you out of the park if you are trying to do things that it thinks are bad. So there's a real downside risk to this. It's not just that like, well, I tried it and it didn't really work. It's like you could really damage your business in a lasting way.
Yeah, you absolutely can. You can, getting kicked off Google is probably the worst thing that could happen. Your whole domain could be kicked off, or you could just be penalized in a way that you're no longer being shown. You're page 5 or 6. You literally, which is kind of the same thing, right? You just don't exist. You really need to be careful.
Yeah, you just think about that in terms of deals lost, right? If you are ranking in Google and you're getting leads and deals from SEO, and then you are dropped off the face of the planet because you did some sort of shady SEO thing or somebody you hired that you didn't even know they were doing it, that's potentially tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars lost to your business, right? So the cheap stuff is not cheap when you think about the cost of it.
That's right.
Long term. Let's talk about links a little bit. We mentioned links in terms of low quality, and this is probably like one of the defining characteristics, I would say, of low quality SEO. So can you get into a little bit, explain to people what a link is in terms of SEO, why it's important, and then talk about how people build links and how that can really help you or hurt you.
Yeah. So when we're talking about links or the activity of link building, we're talking about other people's websites, other websites that are mentioning you and linking to your website, right? So, if we kind of pull the lens back and look at how Google works and this idea of crawling and what that is, it's literally Google starting at one website and then following all the links off of that website and kind of crawling, in a web formation. So if I create a website today and no one ever links to it, it's kind of like an island. And that idea of being an island that no one else links to and no one else thinks is good enough to mention, and it doesn't live anywhere else, in this ecosystem that is Google, that sends a message. And that message is it's not a very authoritative website. It doesn't have much to say. It's not being mentioned anywhere else. So to increase that authority of your domain or your website or your pages, you want to have other sites linked to you. And there's ways to do that. And it is challenging. And you can go after particular signals, right? Local signals. You want local places to link to you. And then there's some other national and some other business citations and directories to link to you. All of this paints a picture for Google and makes the case as to why you should rank above your competitors. So Google has this kind of split second to make those choices as to who ranks where, who's 1, who's 2, who's 3, who's 4. And you want to make sure that your reputation, your linking reputation, your linking profile, is mirroring you as a business, and your scoreboard on that is good. You want to do the activities that it takes to get people to link to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about, so that's what links are, and that's why they're good. You mentioned PBNs, which stands for private networks. Let's talk about, a very common thing is for an investor to get an offer that says hey, pay me a certain amount per month and I'll build you 10 links a month or 50 links a month or whatever. So what's wrong with that? If I'm an investor and I'm hey, links are going to help me rank in Google, what's wrong with me paying someone to get 50 links a month?
Yeah. Well, it kind of makes sense. If you're going to drive the system and if you can't otherwise get these valuable links, you'd say, oh, well, I'm just going to create another website and link to myself. Or if I'm going to sell it, I'm going to create a couple websites and sell those links that are coming out. The thing is, it became so popular of people trying to scam Google that Google knows what that looks like. They know what these private blog networks look like. So there's very little content. There's trash ads. They have crazy domain names that are not very meaningful. And you can see this. If you look up, say, a site that has this, you'll see a lot of trash. And you can tell that they paid somebody to build these links. And there's even tools that you can use that will rank these websites and show what their spam scores are. And, so you can really dive into these. You go, oh, it's a PBN, it's garbage, and then if you read what it's saying, there's nothing there. There's no reason for that site to really exist. So PBNs are bad. And it's in the guidelines. Google says, do not use PBNs.
Right. One of the few things that Google literally specifically calls out and says, do not use these. If you use these, we will penalize you.
We will penalize you. Yeah.
It's sort of like if you go on Twitter and someone has 1 million followers and you're like, wow, I'm really impressed. But then if you look at their followers, none of their followers follow anyone else. None of their followers have ever tweeted. None of their followers have pictures. You're like, oh, these are all fake accounts, right?
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
it's almost exactly like that. And Google will find you and they will penalize you.
Yeah,
right?
Because they know, right? They're following these links. So so PBNs are bad. Good links are worth getting.
Worth getting. But here's the point that I would really want to make to everybody out there. Good links are worth getting and they are hard to get.
Yeah.
So part of the reason that SEO people use PBN or low quality SEO people will use PBNs is because it's easy and they can point to it and say, look, Mr. Client, Mr. Real Estate Investor, Mr. and Mrs. Real Estate Investor, I've done this work. I did 10 leaks, blah, blah, blah. But it's artificial. It's easy. It doesn't mean anything. Whereas getting legitimate links, let's say from like media, so your local newspaper, your local news site, from big websites, those are hard to acquire. So low quality SEO people can't do that because they don't charge enough to actually do the amount of work that it takes, right?
Right. Yeah. So we have our tactics. Jeremiah is our link builder on our team, and he does a great job. He is always looking for opportunities to get our clients links and to get mentions, and it's a lot of it is about the relationships that you're building. So whether you're building relationships locally, we'll probably talk about this in another call, but yeah, if you're building those local links, that's sending a nice local message. If you're having relationships with people in the media or other high thought of websites, or you can actually get your foot in the door and write good, helpful, real content with mentions back. That's that's kind of how this is done. I mean, it's who you know. It's 2019, and it comes down to who you know and who's going to link back to your website.
Yeah, we'll put it this way, right? Jeremiah, who's a person on our team who primarily does the link building, he is very smart, very well educated in SEO. That's all he does, right? Also ran his own business, right? Very successful dude on his own. That is his basically full-time job for every client that we bring on. Well, we took an extremely high quality person and literally that's what he does.
Yeah.
And he busts his butt.
Yeah.
We're still not building dozens and dozens of links because first of all, you don't need to. And second of all, that's because good links are hard to get. We talked about this, right? Like the most valuable gemstones are hard to get, right? This is kind of the definition of quality work, is that it should be difficult, right? So super, super important. I always say if someone's offering to build you a bunch of links at a low cost, it's a huge red flag. For me, it's a disqualifier for working with anyone or seriously considering working with anyone. That is, to me, kind of like the sniff test for SEO. So, you heard it here first, or second or third. But probably told you this multiple times on this podcast, but the more that we get this message out there, the better it's going to be. Guys, we've covered a ton of stuff in this episode. It's been a really deep episode. I hope you got a lot of value out of this. And if you have questions about what we're talking about, I highly suggest that you come in. We have a free Facebook group. You can get there at adwordsnerds.com/group. That's adwordsnerds.com/group. Patty is in the group. I am in the group. We are going to be posting stuff all month. All month is SEO month, September. We're going to be posting stuff in there pretty much every week, answering questions. So if you're not sure about something, someone's made you a pitch, if someone sent you something that you're just like, hey, I don't know if this is legit or it doesn't jive with something you've heard about SEO, let us know in the group. Post in the group, tag me, tag Patty. We're happy to help you out and get into it with you. Patty, thank you so much. This was awesome. And I'm really glad you're able to come on here. And we will be doing a couple more of these episodes. So I'm telling you people, there will be more Patty. You don't need to panic. There will be more Patty on the show. I promise. Patty, thank you so much as always.
Thank you, Dan.
All right. Thanks, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this episode with Patty D'Alessio. All this month, we are going to be digging into SEO. So make sure you tune in next week for another episode with Patty. And if you didn't catch our first week's episode of September for SEO September, go back and check that one out as well. And remember, it is free to enter our massive SEO mega bundle giveaway. And you can do that at adwordsnerds.com/contest. That's ADWORDS nerds.com/contest. AdwordsNerds.com/contest. Sorry, guys, I haven't had the most sleep I've ever had in this week. So I hope you're having an awesome rest of your week. I hope you enjoy these episodes, and we will see you next week for more SEO tips, tricks, and strategies. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you soon.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.